So my friends, this is a look in the dark, chapter 11, part 3. Chapter 11 is called Bandit Country. Danny and Carol have arrived with the parents, and Danny's with her brother in the farmyard. Carol is in the kitchen. In the farmhouse kitchen, Linda Irvine and Carol were sitting at the table looking through a well-worn but much treasured photograph album. The similar conversation about their security had been easier because Carol had expressed so much confidence in her husband, and Linda had quickly acknowledged her pride in having a writer for a son-in-law. As Tom and Danny entered the house, full of banter, the brother and sister hugged long and hard in genuine affection. The telephone broke their embrace as Tom lifted the receiver and, asking the caller to hold, covered the mouthpiece and said, "It's for you, Rudyard. Posh English. Must be your publisher." Carol laughed. "I bet it's Ricky." "Hello, Danny." Hello. Danny was now standing by the shiny semicircular table where the phone resided. "Hello, old boy. I have news for you. Listen to this." "Oh, is it in order to talk on the phone?" "Yes, with discretion." "With discretion indeed. You know who I'm referring to. Good news, Daniel. Seems he wears a uniform, old boy, and unless he's an actor who dresses at home, well, guess what the uniform is? He is a customs officer." Well. Interesting, eh? "Ricky, you made my day. You're brilliant. We haven't even started here yet." "I should think not. You get some time with the family and don't be tight with the expenses, you understand?" "Yes, I hear you." "Take them out for a meal and put it through the expenses, please. I'll ring you again later in the week. Tell Carol the interesting news." "No, you tell her. I know you'd like to. Talk to you soon." Danny beckoned his wife to the phone. "Well, young lady." Sir Richard's Eton accent did little to hide the boyish excitement he was feeling. "I waited outside his house and he came out wearing the uniform of one of Her Majesty the Queen's customs officers." "I don't believe you." "I dear girl, but you do." "That's incredible, Uncle Rick. We'll have to go and buy you a drink." Carol realised that all eyes were on her, and she wasn't sure if it was because she'd mentioned alcohol or just curiosity about the conversation. As she replaced the receiver, she looked her husband in the eye and calmly said, "Well, that confirms some of our research, Danny, and makes future publication even more important." Danny caught again the glint in his beloved's eye and was grateful she'd covered the situation admirably. Neither Linda or Tom asked any questions, but they both looked impressed. That was confirmed when Thomas said, "He sounded like he really went to Eton." He did really go to Eton. Thomas and Linda realised that Carol wasn't joking. He wondered how people like his sister and brother-in-law could be so friendly with a toff like that. In his office in Clapham, Major Stanhurst, who completed his education at Wormwood Scrubs Prison rather than the Eton College, was sipping the glass of white wine that his secretary had brought him a little earlier. They were celebrating the way the Major's bank balance had been affected by the sale of 27 rhino horns in Amsterdam. Stanhurst was especially pleased that his current arrangement had worked so well. The rhino horns had never been in Britain, but the Major had still brokered the deal at a massive profit, purchased at a reasonable price in South Africa, stored in a Mediterranean dockland for 3 months, then sold and delivered at about 500% profit after all bribes and expenses were covered. Both the Major and his brassy helpmate were keen to amass the profits, but to escape time behind bars. Rhino horns alone could get them 2 years, and they knew it, but they had clean hands. In fact, the Major's arrogance had taken to new heights because he was coming to see that the more cash he had, the more clout he had, and the more effective his operators were. It was getting interested now because many of the officials that he'd corrupted were in his hands. They couldn't go back without involving themselves in a criminal investigation, so having sold their soul to Stanhurst for the love of mammon, they had to dance to his music even though he was playing it faster. If money did not persuade them to transgress a little further than before, the threat of exposure worked. There had been the matter of one policeman at Heathrow who threatened to spill the beans seriously. He fell for the expenses paid vacations in San Francisco, and his parents were still puzzling over his failure to return. It had cost Stanhurst a bit, but he knew that a decent hitman on the west coast of America would not come cheap, and he had to be certain, and the matter had been cleared up nicely. In Stanhurst's book of rules, any threat or even suspicion that seemed intimidating would put its owner on the endangered species list. and he wasn't going to allow anyone else to be more menacing than he was. Every cent he'd paid out to the Californian professional exterminator had been worth it, he felt. Had the Major been able to see into the nearby cafe kitchen area, and had he heard the hatred influencing the words being uttered as Theo chopped up the day's beef supply, he may have realised there were other dangers he should be considering. "Oh Lord," Theo minced out each word. "Let them fix him, just let them fix him good." As the Sierra was waved through a routine joint Royal Ulster Constabulary and British Army road check about a mile from Victoria Bridge, Carol was deep in thought. Unlike Danny, she did not notice the 3 collared doves that flew up from the side of the road where they'd been enjoying the grain spilled by a passing animal feed truck. The last few days had been very pleasant for her, and to see Danny at home so with her parents was a real joy to her. She looked at Danny as he concentrated on the road, it being new to him but not to her. She thought back to teenage trips to County Donegal, which had been the cause of her knowing this road fairly well. This was certainly not Somerset, England. The 2 counties, Tyrone, Ireland and Danny's home county, had agriculture in common, but that was about all. The air, the grass, the atmosphere were all a change here. Even the carrion crows were different, being black in the west of England, but here being the grey hooded variety. The same, but not the same. She joked with Danny about this. They were like the crows, the same species, but she, like the hoodies, was a sort of slightly wilder subspecies. Danny had noticed her watching, and she broke the silence. "You should see this stretch of road in June, Danny boy. These trees are a variety of laburnum, and when they're all in bloom it knocks your eyes out. Even if the sky is overcast, it seems to be sunshine, so beautiful." "You like it up here, don't you?" I do." "So what's Castlederg like?" "Just a small border town surrounded by villages and wild countryside. It's seen plenty of trouble for a town its size though." "Like what?" "Shootings, both ways, bombings, some terrible incidents. There's a fair bit of fear and suspicion really." "Well, that's a comfort." Danny gave her a half-serious smile. "No, I mean between Catholics and Protestants. They've all seen too much, and there's not much up here to take their minds off politics and religion. Know what I mean?" So how will my English accent go down? He'd experienced the way an English accent could grab attention in other places in Northern Ireland. "I certainly want to know who you are. I think we should do what we have to and get back to Mum and Dad's as quickly as possible." "Not like you to panic." "Well, I'm not panicking, just acknowledging the situation." "Do you know anybody up here?" "Not this far west. I knew a girl who married and moved to Newton Stewart, but nobody in Castlederg." "Are you nervous, Dan?" "Just a bit, Carol. Investigating anything is a bit hard here, with the troubles and all. I don't want to terminate my career as a writer just when it's getting exciting." "Don't joke about that, Danny." He laughed. Carol added, "I mean it, Dan." "I mean it too. The posthumous works of an author don't help him much." "Danny, stop it. I mean it." Just trying to lighten the mood. What's eating you?" "I told you about Sandra, the girl I was at college with. Patrick left her one night to go home to the Falls Road, and the UVF shot him." "Yeah, I remember that now. Why did they shoot him?" "Not sure. Maybe he was involved, or maybe he was just an easy target dating a Protestant girl. I do remember her telling me, when I went to try and comfort her, that he'd been joking about the spate of sectarian shootings when they kissed goodnight. And an hour later, he was dead." "Grim. But you're not superstitious." "True, but it puts me off that kind of humour. When we get up here, you had better let me do most of the talking, okay?" "You usually do. Makes me glad you came." This time Carol managed to laugh, but Danny did find her concerns a bit chilling. As he noticed the Castlederg sign, he felt the stress levels increase a bit more. They didn't admit it to each other, but they were both feeling more tension now. It was something about where they were. "How do I get to this accommodation?" "You take the left fork here. You know, Danny, in the 1970s, the police and the Ulster Defence Regiment spent 20 minutes shooting each other up and down this street here." "You're joking now. How?" "We go over a bridge in a minute at the bottom of the town, and to the right, just before the bridge, is the main street. Turn left here. This is the bridge." Danny slowed and turned the car to the left and crossed the River Derg. Carol continued her story. I think it was 1978, and it was a Saturday night. A car was coming across the bridge, going the same way as us, but it spluttered and backfired twice. At the same time, two half-drunk and off-duty policemen left a pub in the main street. They heard the car backfire and thought someone, the IRA I suppose, was shooting at them. So they drew out their legally held guns and started shooting down the street toward the bridge. Sometimes confusion combines with coincidence, and they produce chaos. As the backfiring car pulled away, a patrol of Ulster Defence Regiment soldiers came over the bridge from the other direction, and seeing the figures firing at them from the main street, they put the Land Rovers across the road and started shooting back. You can laugh, Danny, but it wasn't funny at the time. Turn right here. Well, someone must have told the police that someone was having a gun battle with two of their off-duty colleagues. The police barracks is at the other end of the town, I think. So the police came down to the area near the pub to help their mates. Then there is a serious shootout for a lot of rounds. And in the middle of it all, a dance finishes and everyone comes out into the middle of it. Security forces fighting it out with security forces. It went on until someone called on what was happening. I bet there was big trouble. Maybe, but the next day nobody was talking and there was no mention on the news about it. Nobody wanted to answer questions. So how do you know about it? A girl I went to school with had a brother in the police up here and he told her the whole story. Anybody hurt? No. But the next day the IRA issued a statement saying they didn't know what was going on in Castlederg, but it was nothing to do with them. Some of the locals started to call the place Dodge City about then. Too many men with guns, I reckon. Right, Dan. Next left and a lane on your left. That's it. Just there. Look. The Greens booked into the arranged farmhouse accommodation and satisfied the hospitable owner's curiosity a little while they explained that they were on a bird-watching holiday. The farmer, Mr. Sproul, relaxed much more when Carol told him that her father was a county Tyrone farmer in the Dungannon area. Danny didn't like so many questions, but Carol thought the couple were only being friendly. Although they advertised farmhouse accommodations, there were few tourists up here in the wilds of Tyrone, high up above Castlederg, off the Inniskilling Road. So, you can see how Danny and Carol are getting a little tense. They are in an area where there was a lot of trouble. Danny is young and English and could be misunderstood. You know, I know because I was in those areas at that time, doing a different kind of work. Anything to do with what was going on. Just preaching the good news. But nonetheless, being there were times when you felt a little tense. So I can imagine how Danny and Carol would have been feeling. What happens next? Does the tension increase? You'll have to wait and see. Hope you enjoyed that, and talk to you soon, my friends. Bye bye.